This video is one I wish we didn't have to make. But abuse, in its many forms, is one of the most serious problems facing our society today. 1 out of every 3 adults in Canada has been impacted by abuse in some form. Think about it. That's a lot. Abused children are suffering at the hands of those they should be able to trust most. And all too often, the damage lasts a lifetime. Studies show that kids who have been abused are far more likely than others to end up using drugs, struggling with depression or other health problems, attempting suicide, living on the streets, or becoming abusers themselves. This is important information, so please listen carefully. It's highly possible that abuse is part of the lives of the young people you will be building relationships with, and we want you to be prepared. So, what is abuse? Abuse is non-accidental injury from mistreatment by the actions or omissions of a child's parents, guardians, or other adult influencers. But abuse isn't just one thing. It comes in many forms. Physical abuse. That's any intentional physical force or action that can result in injury to a child. It can also be a discipline that was stronger than what would be considered reasonable. Sexual abuse. This is the use of a child for sexual gratification. It includes sexual touching, but can also be things like making a child watch sexual acts or take sexual pictures or videos of themselves. It might even be the adult intentionally peeping in on the child while they're undressing or in the shower. Emotional abuse. This happens repeatedly through a pattern of destructive behavioral or verbal attacks that don't leave bruises but hurt just as much. It can include rejecting, terrorizing, ignoring, isolating, exploiting, or corrupting a child. Neglect. This one often is not recognized as abuse because it's not about what is done, but what isn't done. Neglect is failure to provide for a child's basic needs: food, clothing, adequate shelter, supervision, and medical care. Reporting abuse isn't an option. It's the legal duty of the person who has become aware of the abuse or suspects abuse. If you think a child is being abused, ask your supervisor to guide you in walking through the required steps of letting the child welfare agency in your area know. You don't need to have an ironclad case against the abuser. You don't even need to know all the details. The responsibility to prove allegations rests with the government ministry and the police, not you. Your job is to reflect how God sees them: precious, valuable, and worth protecting. So, how do you know if a young person is being abused? 1. You may notice some warning signs. Unexplained bruises, especially on the face, lower back, thighs, or upper arms, or different colored bruises indicate that they are at different stages of healing. Having sexual knowledge not usual for their age, in their language or behavior, lack of proper hygiene or proper clothing for the weather conditions, taking inappropriate responsibility for the well-being of younger siblings, making comments about living in a neglectful environment like not having eaten or being locked out for days, becoming anxious and fearful around adults after being outgoing and friendly, constant physical complaints such as sore throats or stomach aches that have no medical explanation, a fear of going home. These are all warning signs. They don't necessarily mean abuse is happening, but when one or more sign is repeatedly showing up in the same child, it's time to gently say, "Would you tell me about what is going on at home? I've seen some things that make me concerned for you, and I'd like to help." Another way to recognize abuse is if a friend of the youth hints or even outright tells you about it. If this happens, you need to ask the teen about it directly. But first, talk with their friends about doing this together so they can express their concerns and support alongside yours. Abused and neglected children almost always show signs of their suffering. But with teens who have been in abusive relationships over time, the abuse has almost become their norm. It's something they've learned to live with. But just because the teen is coping, it doesn't mean that it's all right. We need to communicate the value young people have in our eyes and in the eyes of God, by helping them recognize that abuse in any form is not okay. And there's a third way you may recognize abuse. They may tell you. This often starts out by asking if you can keep a secret. And the answer to that is, I don't keep secrets that might allow my friends to be harmed because I care too much about them to let that happen. If a youth does choose to tell you about abuse, here are a few things to remember. First, stay calm. Don't panic and get all caught up thinking about what comes next. There's a wounded teen sitting right in front of you and trusting you with something horrible. Offer them a place of safety to tell their story. Give them your full attention. Listen with your whole body. Use your eyes, your ears, your facial expression, and your posture to let them know that you are entirely there for them. Secondly, let them know that they did the right thing, that you believe them, and that they are strong because they're refusing to keep this harmful secret, because they're talking about it. Thirdly, be sure to tell them that you're sorry this happened. Let them know that it's not their fault and that this doesn't define them. Their life and their future is more than this awful thing. Lastly, don't say everything will be fine now. It may take a lot of time before everything is fine again. But remind them that they aren't alone in this anymore. After you've listened calmly and compassionately, you need to let the young person know that you are required by law to share this information with child welfare services so that they and their family can get the help that is needed. Invite them to go with you through the reporting process, starting a conversation with your supervisor. If they're willing, you want to involve them in as many ways that give them as much power as possible in this incredibly disempowering situation. The young person will most likely feel upset or afraid that this secret they've been keeping is now being told to the authorities. They'll probably feel like the government is gonna sweep in and tear apart their family, that everything's gonna be a mess. But you need to let them know that the ministry responsible for the safety of children and youth has a mandate to keep families together. By letting the ministry know, the family is going to get the support they need, and so are they. If you suspect abuse is taking place and the young person is unwilling to talk about it, you are still required to share your suspicions with child welfare. The youth might not be ready to talk to the authorities or to you. They may even be angry with you for not keeping their secret. But you can connect them to Kids Help Phone Confidential Helpline. They just need to text the word CONNECT to 686868. They can even stay anonymous, and a trained counselor will listen to them and support them. Don't let your own fear of not knowing what to say or the uncertainty about what will happen next hold you back from standing up for the young people who may not think they are valuable enough to stand up for themselves. God is our defender. As people bearing His image, we need to do the same for young people suffering abuse.